Hello there, and welcome to my rock album reviews. This review is going to be on the British rock and roll band Led Zeppelin, which was sort of a boundary crosser in the sense that some people consider this to be one of the first heavy metal bands, and I personally don't think that they're heavy metal, but they've got a lot of heavy metal traits to them, which makes them a beloved band by other metalheads. And on this list, I am not going to do live albums or compilations, and I'm also not going to do coda. I'm only going to concentrate on their 8 main studio albums. So here's the list. Coming in at number 8 is In Through the Outdoor. In Through the Outdoor was a good album, but I just think it was Led Zeppelin's weakest effort. For me, this whole album sounds tired. It sounds to me like they're a little burned out and they're a little tired and looking for some inspiration on what to do. And probably the best song on this album is All My Love. But otherwise, this album just feels kind of dead and uninspired. Next up on my list, number 7 is Presence. Presence has a very similar feel to In Through the Outdoor. It also has a feeling of being tired and almost like a writer's block to it. The reason that it is above In Through the Outdoor is because it has Achilles' Last Stand, which I think is got some of Led Zeppelin's coolest riffs on it. And Achilles' Last Stand would be considered to be an awesome song by me if they had found a way to make it shorter. Unfortunately, it's just too long, and the other songs on the album, while they're good, don't really measure up to their previous stuff. Coming in at number 6 is Led Zeppelin I, the one that started it all. Now, I'll probably get some slack for this one since Led Zeppelin I is such a classic album and one of probably the most classic albums of all time. But, they were still kind of discovering their identity, rock and roll and heavy metal and all that sort of thing. This new sound, acid rock or whatever you want to call it, was still kind of trying to find its legging and its footings and stuff. And, so this album's got some real gems and some real hints of how great Led Zeppelin's going to be, but it never fully reaches the Led Zeppelin heights, which is why it ends up kind of lower on my list. Coming in at number 5 is Led Zeppelin III. Led Zeppelin III had a lot of potential and is a great album in its own right. The only reason it ends up lower is in comparison with the other Led Zeppelin albums. This album kind of feels a little bit disjointed in the sense that, you start off with the Immigrant Song, which is such a heavy rocking tune, and it really gets the album rolling, and then right away you go into like this acoustic ballad thing, which the song Friends is an excellent acoustic ballad thing, except it's, you just got rocking and then now you're already slowing down, and then they kind of go into Celebration Day, which is an interesting tune, but then they slow down again, and then there's some more acoustic pieces and stuff, and so this album just feels like it's lacking direction a little bit, and that's why it ends up at number 5. Coming in at number 4 on my list, I would say, is Led Zeppelin II. When Led Zeppelin II came out, it basically had everything about it that was good. Everything about it was an improvement over the first Led Zeppelin album, Led Zeppelin I. And for me, this was really the first really, really awesome Led Zeppelin album that I totally got into. Led Zeppelin II. It's just, there's not a bad track on the record, and you can totally listen to the whole thing start to finish without skipping a beat. It's got a great flow, and it always feels great. So, coming in at number 3 is going to be Led Zeppelin IV. Led Zeppelin IV, by most folks, think that this is the best Led Zeppelin album, and in all honesty, this might be actually the best Led Zeppelin album, except For radio airplay. Radio airplay has overplayed this album to death, whether it be Black Dog, or whether it be rock and roll on Cadillac commercials, or whether it be the infamous You Can't Play Stairway to Heaven at Guitar Center joke, or whether it be Misty Mountain Hop, or Going to California. Every single song on this album has been played to death on airwaves, at least in my radio market. And so the result is that I'm kind of burned out on this album, and so I don't, even though it's such a great album with so many classic songs, I typically don't reach for this album when I'm in the mood for some Zeppelin. Coming in at number 2, and this was a tough one, is Led Zeppelin's Physical Graffiti, and this one might even be interchangeable with the first slot. This was a double album. It's got a whole bunch of songs on here, and that's really one of the reasons why it ended up in my number 2, because even though it's got some of the most coolest songs that Zeppelin's ever done, like 10 Years Gone, or In the Light, or Kashmir, or those kind of things, it's also got a lot of filler songs, a lot of songs that, if you are listening to the album all the way through, you end up skipping, not because they're not cool songs, but because you're trying to maintain the feel and vibe of the album. And that's one area where this album is kind of weak, but other than that, this album absolutely crushes and is their second best album in my opinion. And now, my absolute favorite Led Zeppelin album of all time is without a doubt Houses of the Holy. Houses of the Holy, man, is an absolutely perfect record. It's got everything that Led Zeppelin does good is on this record. Whether it be, their heavy riffing, their bluesy solos, their awesome acoustic parts, their incredible singing, the pounding drums, John Paul Jones' ridiculous versatility, switching different instruments, and his bass lines are just the heaviest bass lines that ever lived almost. I'd have to say, yeah, definitely Houses of the Holy. If you only listen to one Led Zeppelin album in your entire life, well, it might be Led Zeppelin IV, just because that's got so many hits on it. But truly, in my opinion, the best Led Zeppelin of all time is Houses of the Holy, especially the first 2 songs, the way it starts out. The song Remains the Same into Rain Song, I think is one of the greatest ways to start an album and get an album rolling of all time. So there you have it. That's what I think about Led Zeppelin. Now you know, in case you were wondering what my favorite Led Zeppelin albums are. Now you know. Okay? Cool. Alright, cool. Go listen to some Zeppelin!